Hi, Jorge.
Hi, Darryl. Very nice to be with you here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. You're in London, I'm in New York. And to our audience, Jorge is the guy, along with a couple other folks, who started HealthUnlocked, the platform that Malecare relies on now and uses so frequently. And we hope that we've contributed a lot to its development. What we'll talk for about 20 or 30 minutes about how HealthUnlocked helps people, but I want to get sort of some basic kind of idea. What why did you even get involved in this? What problem were you trying to solve with it?
Yeah, hi everybody. It was a very left field thing, really. I had no background in healthcare, and in 2009 I was working on I was doing an MPhil and starting a PhD in Cambridge, trying to understand how social networking, which was a nascent thing at the time, was going to transform what we academically call knowledge-based industries. And then one day I was talking with a doctor who was telling me how he was dealing with his patients. That is, 10 minutes after even major surgeries and only once every month or 2-3 months. And it struck me how weird was that such a complex, important industry, let's say, would have that type of problem, basically not being able to, allocate resources better. And it struck me also that everybody was thinking about healthcare like something related to doctors or to, pharmaceuticals, or all sorts of, or academia even, but very transactional. And everything was, all the knowledge of these people were in different silos, the doctors, the academia, the pharmaceuticals. And I thought, well, this is not a drugs or MRIs industry. This is a knowledge-based industry. And if you think about where that knowledge comes from, it always comes from the patients. And because the healthcare system is organized with no patients at the center, it's organized around payments, really, and on insurances, providers, etc. Nobody was really, taking care of structuring or organizing the patient experiences. And that was what I thought was the kind of first thing that I thought. It was how patient experiences could be structured. And then we researched HealthUnlocked as sort of the interface in between clinical care, which is everything almost in healthcare, and patients and self-care, essentially. So we started to organize a platform with a form of a social network with communities that were going to attract and engage patients so we can help them help each other, really. That was kind of the original thing, but I had no background in healthcare.
Yeah, and I didn't have a background in healthcare either. I was doing refugee resettlement in conflict zones. So,
Yeah.
and that's probably the best way to start a new way of doing things, is to not know what you're doing when you get started.
I think if you know, you don't start, because normally it's so painful. Anything to create anything, it's like an artwork or anything. If you would know how difficult or how complex, if you don't have some naivety around what you're trying to resolve, then you probably don't start, or you start in a very different way, which is maybe what you do when you're older, like me.
Yeah, and you hit on a top level point right from the get-go. The idea that what we created, what Malecare and using the HealthUnlocked platform, and what you created for the HealthUnlocked platform for Malecare, we created something incredibly simple, but people haven't a clue how insanely complex and how difficult it was to get to that level of simplicity. If you look at go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's the things that healthcare is very, very complex, and it's complex because it's a complex industry. It's a very old industry with a lot of legacy from 2,000 years ago, I would say. But the thing is that, the basic learning, if you want, of the last 10, 11 years is almost a cliche one, which is that patients are people. And if you think about people needing support around their health needs, then the whole thing is very simple, at least from the front end, if you want. It's very complex still until today, from the financial models, from how you interact with an industry, with a system, with a healthcare system that is collapsed in many countries in the world, and also with a nascent system that is coming up right now in everywhere in the world, where there's going to be a different organization of healthcare in the coming years. But from the patient point of view, if you think about the patient's people, you will know that patient problems are very common to all conditions, which are isolation. Always, we did this survey for many years in HealthUnlocked, and 2/3 of the people coming to HealthUnlocked didn't know anyone else with the same health condition before joining HealthUnlocked. So basically, 2/3 of the people didn't feel comfortable talking with anyone because they felt that they were not going to be understood by those other people. So the feeling of isolation, anxiety, confusion are human drivers that we focused very hard to resolve over the last decade, really. And in doing that, we were always trying to intervene and transform the big healthcare system. And you do that by getting big, by getting a sustainable business model, by partnering with the right people. And on those, I think it was very, very critical for us very early. Like the first thing that the first kind of strategy that we did and it worked, that was to partner with patient organizations. That was really critical from the start point. And the way that happened was not, I mean, today it kind of sounds obvious that HealthUnlocked, it has so many patient organization partnerships, but it wasn't at all a thing when we started. I remember back in 2010, I think, we were thinking about all this structure and the platform and how we're going to grow and things like that. And we had two very basic problems. One was that we couldn't go across many conditions because no one is an expert on too many conditions. So we couldn't, on our own, with very limited resources, scale on that regard. The other was that we didn't have any name or anything. So we were nobody, really. And in the UK, patient organizations have a very high status, let's say, in terms of their ethics and the way that they approach medicine. And in general, in the UK healthcare, it's a very political thing, but not in a sense that it goes from one period to the other. It's just that it is something that people cares about a lot because you have a social system, a social healthcare system that has been for many years and it works. And that social healthcare system grew from the 50s onwards and started to provide universal access to everybody in the UK. The cost of that, in many ways, was also that doctors were private in a way to have that kind of more cozy family doctor relationship with patients for obvious reasons, because they have to do with, the very urgent things that are demanding high knowledge, let's say. But that, I had never seen a study that shows this, but this was my thinking at the time, was like, somebody else must be taking the role. There must be a transfer of role in between that kind of family doctor type of approach to population from somebody else. Must be doing that. And if you see the proliferation of patient organizations from the 50s onwards in the UK, you see a rapid growth after the creation of the NHS. And that is normally ex-patients or families of patients, putting some money, trying to organize a structure and trying to support people on all the things that doctors can't do or hospitals can't do. And that is the business of self-care, which has a very bad economic platform in the world because nobody really pays for self-care. And that's something that we've been advocating and trying to change all these years. So the partnership with patient organizations wasn't at that very deep level. Was okay. you have been providing self-care. We are going to grow and build a platform for self-care. And then we got the NHS on board, which was very big. This was in 2011, 12. They had a very big website, which is like the similar of WebMD or Helpline in Europe, in the US. It was called NHS Choices. Now it's just called nhs.uk. And they were looking for user-generated content, and they opened a tender. People, participated in this tender, but we were the only people that had a scalable model for moderation, because we were working at the time with 5 or 10 patient organizations, charities. And then we won the ability to inject, until today, user-generated content into the NHS platform. And that in turn gave us the endorsement of the NHS. So pretty much overnight, all the patient organizations in the UK were wanting to work with us, because that was the way for them to be exposed to the big audience of the NHS. And that's how kind of that relationship started.
Yeah, and then sometime, I think it was 2011, maybe late 2011, your wife shows up in my office.
Yeah.
and we're talking, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what we've been trying to do and have done, using a Yahoo platform, using our own proprietary platform, but we don't have the ability to do the tech work to really scale it up. And the way your wife was talking, and from her experience, I understood you guys get it, and then Matt and Phil show up. Matt's a surgeon. Phil is also a technology guy. And then ultimately we met, and then, we were all just sort of on the same page. And how can we do this in the United States? And you had one or two other patient organizations prior to Malecare, I think. But we wanted to push you and push HealthUnlocked in an even deeper penetration towards patient understanding, developing truth from patient experience, and being able to provide an easy to use platform for patients to connect with each other. And you guys got what we were saying. You guys understood that, that HealthUnlocked people understood the importance for patient organizations to connect with patients, so that we could amplify voices and direct science and research towards the things that are important to them, like quality of life, like anxiety reduction, like some sort of certainty about what an outcome may be. And in more cases than not, the truth about that when there's no certainty. And that, I think, was the start of a beautiful partnership that's continued all this time.
And I think it will continue for very long. I mean, it's part, as you know, the company now has been, it's an American company now. I mean, technically, HealthUnlocked still is a UK company, but the owners now are American. And all these things have been deeply discussed with them. But beyond what discussion a management team can have with another one, there is something in HealthUnlocked in the way that it was built, which is both a technological determination and the relationship with the charities that really protects HealthUnlocked. Because in a way, the patient, it's a social network at the end in the structure, So that depends. That makes you fully dependent on creating value and respecting your users. If you don't, then your users will leave you. Sometimes you can have a product that is too good for them to leave. And I think HealthUnlocked has been way better than many other platforms trying to do this for many years for the users, because we basically invested all our time and money in the users and the user journey. But in doing that, we co-developed in a way. We co-worked with people like you, really understanding how we can make the work of the charities, the patient organizations, more efficient and more impactful. And then the history of all these things, the users, the HealthUnlocked people, the HealthUnlocked technology, and the partners are intertwined in a way that can't be, put apart. And I think that's a model for sustainability. I think I'm pretty confident that the platform will remain very useful for a very long time for for the means that we want.
No, I'm certain of it. And this time of COVID has sort of validated that. More and more people are using it, and almost no one ever leaves the platform. In fact, the only people that leave it are trolls and spammers and such, and we're happy for them to go. And that sort of leads to an interesting thing. I mean, one of the things that we insisted on was no advertising. I mean, we didn't want to be part of some, platform that brings eyeballs to, corporate America or corporate global multinational marketing efforts. We weren't about helping marketing teams. We were about helping patients and getting their voices heard to each other and to industry so that things could get better. People look at all the other platforms and see banner ads and such, and they come to Malecare and they come to HealthUnlocked and Malecare on HealthUnlocked, and they say, I don't get it. I mean, I don't see any ads. I don't see any big calls to action to, consider a trial, a clinical trial or buy a product or any. How are you guys existing? Why don't you talk a bit about what makes HealthUnlocked viable?
So we have two kind of big revenue lines. One has to do with research, which is primarily online focus groups, surveys, and stuff that we do with pharmaceutical companies and CROs to try to, understand patients when coming into clinical trials or things like that. The great value that HealthUnlocked adds to that is that we have a very diverse user space, but also we can do stuff really fast. We don't kind of do research on the stuff that is there. It's more about matching people to do research with other people. And then the other side is what we have. It has had many names, but we used to call it population health in my time at least. And what that means is that we have solid evidence that people using HealthUnlocked get better outcomes because they are using HealthUnlocked, which is something that for you and I, we know because we know the power of communities and peer support and all that. But academically and in business, that hasn't been really a thing. So the idea that you just go into a platform and you can get better is not something that is a common knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, let me interrupt. I mean, because that's like absolutely astonishing when I mention it to anyone or you or in any of the presentations that you guys have done or I've done. People just don't believe that. They don't want to believe it or don't understand it. And after 20 minutes of explanation, it's sort of saying, of course, patients talking to each other is a helpful thing in a genuine healthcare outcome. And we've measured that. You guys have measured that. And now they're popular paper. I mean, we could do a PubMed search, probably pull up 100, 150 articles right now today that demonstrate that. Well, how challenging was it to put that out when 7 or 8 years ago?
Very challenging. I mean, very challenging because I think this is a problem. This is a problem that I kind of I'm working still, and I will keep working for in my professional life, which has to do with the validation, not only about peer support or things like that. Is the validation of some informal economies that need to be validated to be perpetuated and grow. So, for example, peer support or all the stuff that patient organizations do, all the stuff that carers do, nurses, a lot of stuff that social workers do, it has an impact. It generates a hell of a lot of value for people and for the economy. And that value hasn't yet been formalized, so it's not really captured by the financial equations very well. So we were kind of advocating this and trying to explain this, but it was a hint in a way. We see it every day. I mean, we had loads of surveys, a lot of anecdotal information, but that's not enough for when you want to build a kind of a business model for something big as this. So it was very hard. It is very slow, like all academic stuff. And also, the papers are there. But if you think, the papers are just saying something that is very obvious. This is what happens, I think, what is going on in industries like consumer goods and all those industries that have been booming in the last decade, what is called fast industries, essentially, which they create value very quickly. They are declining prices. People adopt those things and off they go. But in the slow industries like healthcare, education, where you have a very deep governmental influence and also a very deep academic partnership in the creation and in the innovation, it's very difficult to go at the speed that is needed. And I think what we have proven in 10 years is 10 years. That's a lot of work. Yeah, it's okay. But really, that we knew that 10 years ago in a way. So I think it still is difficult, I think. I think there's still the idea of value-based healthcare is very much an idea. Still is not something that is happening. I think COVID has been a massive catalyst for all these. There's a lot of new things going on. There's less difficulty to access R&D. There is more flexibility with some regulations. There are new breakthroughs in medicine and pharmaceuticals and everywhere that are very powerful. There is great, investment coming on in platforms and the digital business models for all these. But after 10 years, if any, I think the main difficulty for us that we were the first, I think, on advocating for this type of model from a social platform, digital platform. I think from now on, the progress will be way, way more rapid.
Well, we hope. I could see that I'm less optimistic. I see no one really emulating what we've done. Which would be, to my mind, a metric of acceptability and understanding. If we invented a Tesla type of electric car, we'd see other General Motors and Ford and other companies trying to emulate that, and we do. We don't see other platforms trying to be more like HealthUnlocked, but we see the other platforms failing to do what HealthUnlocked is doing so well. And that's astonishing to me.
Yeah, I think it is. But if you see this from the macro point of view, I don't know whether the numbers that I'm going to give you are accurate, but it sounds right to me, more or less. The idea that you have a healthcare system whereby about 80% of the budget, which in the US is pretty big, right, allocated to clinical care. So that's doctors, MRIs, all that stuff that is very useful. But actually, research says that might account only for 20% of the outcomes. And then you have the pharmaceutical industry, which I think is not much more than 11% of the whole healthcare budget, producing drugs that are very expensive, but overall, they do work. So that money goes and the outcomes are kind of correlated with the effort. And I think that industry in itself is being disrupted for good in a very deep way right now. And I think that's going to produce a lot of progress. But then you have the other 10% that nobody has ever talked about, which is self-care, preventive stuff, well-being, which actually accounts for huge levels of impact in the outcomes. So what I think is going on is that you have new incumbents coming into healthcare, like HealthUnlocked, in a way, is a new incumbent, or Amazon, or even the pharmacist chains like Walgreens and CVS, kind of merging their offer with the self-care offer and some other things that can be transferred from the clinical care. So they are becoming more providers of healthcare, and also in partnership with pharmaceuticals and in partnership with platforms and providers of technology and engagement, really. Because at the end, when you say, well, people are not doing HealthUnlocked, yes, but what HealthUnlocked at the end does is engagement. patients. And engagement is critical for any new effort in healthcare. Anything that is happening now will require engagement from patients, and ideally to move from a rather transactional economy in healthcare to a more subscription level economy in healthcare, where the patient really has a say in what's going on with their life. And that's beneficial for everybody. So I don't think I think it's difficult to see it on a specific case. Okay, there are these people doing that and that. But I think overall, and also because in particular in the US, it's so unsustainable, the healthcare system, that it really needs rapid change. And that presents opportunities for people. And those opportunities, I think, are being taken by those big players that I mentioned.
Yeah, and engagement is what HealthUnlocked does so brilliantly. I mean, far more sophisticated and far more welcoming than a Facebook platform or any of the other more, counterparts to health, sort of junior kind of versions that try to be a patient platform and fail miserably. But the idea that patients engage with each other is also the critical part of and part of the innovation of HealthUnlocked, that we found a way for patients to engage with each other with ease and confidence and truthful experience that just doesn't exist on other platforms. And it's almost a magical quality. But you and I and others within HealthUnlocked and Malecare know that's a lot of work in the background that makes that possible.
Yeah. They all come from an understanding of the user, the patient, a real understanding of the patient. So it's easier, I think, to learn how to code or how to get product skills than to know, after you have learned some hard thing like that, how you feel as a patient, or how frustrating is the life of a patient needing support. I think for myself, if one thing I kind of, I don't know if regret or anything, but I mean, given the work that I was doing for many years with investors and as the CEO of the company, I lost a lot of connection with the patients themselves because I wasn't talking to them. I mean, I was using the platform, I was in all the meetings, but it's really important. But I always make sure that the support team was not a kind of a team that is like a cheap team, that is replaceable. It's actually the core of HealthUnlocked, because HealthUnlocked is a support platform. It's obvious if you think from an organizational point of view.
Yeah, and it's I mean, a theme is empathy. I mean, the support team empathizes with the people asking questions. They're not just like, how do I delete my account or something, and then they send you a little thing. I mean, it's like, is there anything else we could do for you, kind of thing.
And many times it's really it's really hard because you have all the trolls and a lot of people that have more demanding needs from a mental point of view. And it's very, you can easily burn out. So one of the things that I think is important when building this type of teams is that people can have a kind of a trajectory within the company, that although you can give, a year or two to support, you can, in a way, get into different things at some point, because or have at least a combination of things that you can do, because it's very, very demanding psychologically, the work in the support area of any healthcare organization, I think.
Yeah. How do you think that, as we wind this conversation down, I mean, do you think Zoom and video type platforms are going to replace, or HealthUnlocked will evolve into something like that, or will stay the same as text, which I prefer? Go ahead.
I think no, but I do think that there is a sort of Pangea, inverse Pangea, the continents coming together or going apart, happening in healthcare. And I think HealthUnlocked as a platform will remain. I think it's very useful. I mean, it's just very useful. I mean, people use it and they get value out of it. But I think that the continents are going to be different. So you will be plugging into different things. there's going to be a lot more of digital platforms where like any marketplace in a way, you will have a lot of more service marketplaces related to healthcare. But if you think about that, what's really, really fundamental for healthcare marketplaces, or I'm not talking marketplace about a place that you go and buy things. It's just a place where things converge and are offered to people, to consumers. I think in healthcare, you can do everything, but if you don't have trust, you can't. You're not going to make it. And HealthUnlocked and the spirit behind it and the technological efforts in the platform and everywhere else in the world trying to do stuff like this are essentially building trust substrates for a new, more efficient healthcare system, I think, in the world. And so I think it is going to evolve. But at the end, what you're carrying in this kind of race is the ability to produce trust, because you respect the patients, you respect the people working for the patients and the families and yourself at the end, and your team and the people that work with you. So I think it will evolve. I can't know exactly how, but I think it's going to evolve. I was thinking the other day about this. It's an analogy, maybe it doesn't work, but in the past, kind of hardware companies were building software inside, and they were kind of bringing or buying companies with that. And then now you have software companies actually building hardware. Tesla, for example. I think here it's a similar thing. We among other groups of people, have been inventing the formalization of patients and self-care as a fundamental part of the healthcare systems. And I think that in a way will invade the rest of the healthcare system and will kind of swallow it. And you will still have a lot of, everything else, MRIs, doctors, pharmaceuticals, etc., but will be done within a framework that is much more in charge of the patients and people, like in many other industries. I mean, this is a peculiar industry in that sense.
Yeah, and we're seeing that before COVID, over the last few years, urologists, radiation oncologists telling me that they're not just referring people to Malacare's platform, to HealthUnlocked essentially, they're actually coming more or less prescribing it. It's the same frame of mind. The idea that this is yet an intervention that's as valuable as a medication or therapy and such. And it is, because you and I have known that for 10 years.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is, absolutely.
The idea of as we wind this down, I want people to understand the idea of trust is important too. Malecare and HealthUnlocked are separate companies. We're a nonprofit based in the USA. You're a for-profit now based in America, but originated in the UK. The trust that we developed pretty much from the start, but has been validated time and time again, is what keeps our partnership and our mutual innovation and mutual help for each other and mutual help for our mutual goal of patients are number one and the interaction for patients is life-saving. It's been extraordinary and I think unique in our world, our nonprofit world, and probably in the for-profit world. And it's sort of like as crystal and golden private public partnership could be. And I'm grateful to you and everyone, at your office. And I hope you guys, I know you guys are grateful to me and everyone at our office, and ultimately for the patient community, not just from Malecare, but from all the other partners that have evolved over the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, we went through this M&A process last year, and selecting the acquirer. I'm actually not, since this week I was telling you, I'm not anymore in the company. But I leave it with great peace of mind, in the sense of how we achieve a a deal that was very good for the patients, for the partners, for the platform, for the team, and that was based on the value of trust that the platform brings, and trust is like all these precious things, is something that you have to take care of. So the team and the company now, I'm sure will remain and will keep taking care of that trust, because it's the core value of the platform from all angles. So yeah, it's at the end a trust, like everything important in life. I think is about trust.
Jorge, thank you very much for being part of our conference. Thank you for having a conversation with me so that our community can actually see a bit of what goes on, behind the scenes, and get an emotional sense of what you and I and our partnership is about. So thank you for that, and see you around.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and thank you to